Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guest she's a writer, a filmmaker, Venita Ozols Graham. How's it going?
It's great up here in the Pacific Northwest. How's it where you are?
It's pretty good weather so far here in Ohio. Got in the high 70s, so I don't know how it is in Oregon.
Wow. No, well, actually, it's Washington State. It's raining on and off, as it always does, so nothing new.
I know. That's just like over here in Ohio. We've got so much rain that another state should have it.
Well, I bought my house up here in Washington because it's a great place to write. You have to be inside all the time, so you're sort of stuck there on your computer. And it's also great for horror. It's a spooky. I live in the middle of a forest, so it's really wonderful.
I bet you probably get some crazy ideas for writing horror because you're surrounded by woods and everything. And I bet being in your house, like secluded like that, I bet you probably have some crazy thoughts in your head.
Oh, I've written 2 horror movies based on being here. I have a lake right next to me as well, so I've written something called Spider Lake. I've also written something about a woman trapped alone in a cabin in the woods. It's a lot of inspiration up here.
I definitely need to check those out.
They're pretty good. Pretty good.
All right. I saw you over at Nightmares Film Festival in Columbus. That is an awesome horror film festival. I always tell everybody to go to it because it's like a big, happy family. A lot of great independent filmmakers. And I sat through the horror short film block and saw your film, The Ossan.
The Ossan.
It's Ossan. Okay, not Ossan. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Tell me a little bit more about your short. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. The Ossan is a real thing. I was reading a magazine one time, and there was an article in it about how in Japan, families are lacking male authority figures. So they've created this job called an Ossan. And it's a middle-aged man who will come into somebody's home and provide what's needed, whether it's tutoring or just guidance, going shopping for the woman. It can be anything that the woman needs to be done in her home. And so I thought, what if there was a scenario where there was a woman who was trapped in a house with 2 deadly brothers, like the Menendez brothers, and she needed some serious help, more help than she even realized she needed. And so that was the germ for creating this short film.
Yeah. And then tell me if I pronounce this name right. I may not pronounce it. Kaizuki Hoshi?
Actually, it's Keisuke Hoashi.
Oh, I hope he doesn't get mad when he listens to this. Hey, I'm sorry. I tried to pronounce your name.
Well, I got it wrong too when I first met him, and he corrected me. Very different pronunciation than one would think.
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, he was very good in the film. He kind of reminded me of a wise Miyagi with a magical mischief side.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I loved his sense of humor, that it was very subtle, but he brought that to it, and it was helpful.
Yeah.
So he's not just a scary monster kind of person. He's actually got a sense of humor.
Yeah, when you first meet him, he looks like an innocent old man when he comes, and talks to the misbehaving teenage sons that, wouldn't give their, stepmother, respect after they lost their father, which was kind of sad.
Right. Yeah, but then he sees it as a hopeless scenario, beyond hopeless. He gets it, they're going to kill her. And that's when you can just see him look out the window and come up with his plan.
I loved the visual effects in the film, especially the snow globe. That was phenomenal.
Well, that was the every movie that I make, I always have something specific about it that's challenging that I want to conquer. And in this movie, it was the visual effects, because putting people inside of a snow globe and doing it really well, it's got a lot to do with reflections as well as, the actual snow inside the globe. And we were shooting in a mansion in Los Angeles in October, and it was in the 80s. and we had to snow in the front yard of this mansion with real snow. We only had like a 6-hour block of time that it was going to not completely melt on us. And then in addition to that, we added the visual effects snow to make it look like a blizzard inside of a snow globe. So that was my challenge. And it was pretty terrifying, thinking if anything went wrong, we weren't going to get this day's work, and I couldn't get the mansion back again. I couldn't get the actors back again. I had to get it right, and we did. It looked really wonderful.
It did. I mean, especially the cinematography scan shot of the two brats that were inside the snow globe. That just felt like so lifelike and illuminating. And I love how you used a certain color and natural lighting to make it look like a big, legit, giant snow globe.
Yeah, well, I have to admit, the best help you could get. I've been in the industry for a long time, and I've made a lot of wonderful friends who support me in what I'm doing. And in this case, my friend Craig Weiss, who's the head of CBS Visual Effects, I called him. I said, this is what I've got. We have a very limited budget, but I need this to look incredibly realistic. And he read the script and he loved it. And he said, I'll get you the very, very best deal that we can. And so it was just completely at cost. And it was the CBS visual effects crew who did this movie for us. That's why it looks so good.
Oh, it was. Let's talk about Bridget Graham. She played the widower in the film. You can tell she prepared herself for that role because she knew how to turn it on and off, from being a grieving widower to, something like, something, I want to take charge. I want to show who's boss in this mansion. I'm not going to let these misbehaving, rich teenage boys, run wild all over me. Was she your ideal for that part, and how did she become part of the film?
Well, she's my daughter.
Okay.
That was an in that she had with me. In truth, Bridget's been acting since she was 3 years old, a professional actress, and she's really good. She's also a very good writer. She co-wrote the Ossan with me, and so she wrote the part for herself. It's truly her, the way she speaks, the way she acts. But she's incredible at improvising. So the very end of the movie, originally, the character was just staring into the snow globe in wonder. And because it was, astonishing what she was looking at. But while we were filming, Bridget added the little twist of at the very end, smiling. And we kept it because it was brilliant. It was like this poor woman who's been harassed and tormented by these boys finally has them under control. So she said, I just did what I would do in real life. I smiled. And it was the perfect ending to the film.
Yes, it was. I loved it because it was like a creepy, mischief type of smile, that she got justice. That's how I got from it. I mean, her.
She's gonna take that snow globe, put it in her lingerie drawer, and close it.
Oh, does she still have the snow globe?
Yep. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, like I said, I had a blast watching it, and I was like, man, I had to have you on and talk about it, and so it's like a real Japanese, like, urban type of legend. I thought it was more like an urban legend type of Japanese lore when you the name.
Well, that's exactly what we've created, and I love that you said that because we have developed it into a TV series, which we are currently pitching. We just pitched it at AFM, and it's a limited 10-episode series, and it's kind of like Twilight Zone meets Kung Fu. He's the all-knowing, all-wise, mystical problem solver. So in every episode, there's a different dynamic of a massive problem that nobody can figure out how to solve, and he comes in and he does it in a completely supernatural way and with a sense of humor.
I would definitely like to check that out and see him play that role. I mean, he invests me in the film. I mean, I'm sorry, he just reminded me of Mr. Miyagi. That's all I have to say.
Yes. He's terrific. He really is. he'd be, if we get this series going, I can't imagine anybody playing it but him. He's terrific.
So when you did the film about the whole Japanese lore and urban legend, to make it like authentic, did you do a lot of research and study on the lore to try to make it as real as possible?
Yes, that's my production designer, Robin Coburn. She did so much research. The opening of the movie, where you see him in his workshop with all the snow globes, where he's actually creating them, everything in that set is authentic Japanese. The artwork, everything, the tools. She did so much research. She's really brilliant. And also our costume designer, June Lin, just everything that she brought they all brought true authenticity to everything, which you may not be able to realize you're seeing it, but I think audiences sense it, under the surface.
And I also gotta love the score in the film too. It kind of reminded me of like a little mystical, magical thriller type of score. How'd you added it into the film in certain scenes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Alexander Arnson. I have a film family that I have developed with each one of my films as I've gone along, and now there's like a core group of the artists, and he's one of them. And I let him go a little crazy. I tell him essentially how I see it. We talk it through in the beginning, but then I let him do what he wants to do. And like in the ending, when she's looking in the snow globe, and he does that whole piano thing that's insane and brings the energy up and then brings it down. It's that I never expected that. That wasn't my suggestion, but he said, "You got to listen to this. I think it really works great." And I did, and I said, "Yeah, you're right." It adds a whole other layer to it. It's like another voice telling the story.
Yeah, that's what I like about films. I've always told this to indie filmmakers. Like certain film scores, it feels like part of the character in certain scenes of the film. It really gets the attitude and tone, through the characters in certain scenes. That's why they should always have a good film score in your film to liven it up.
Sound is so important, especially in horror movies. As somebody once said, you can have a horror movie that's not shot that well, but that's got a really scary score, and it'll still work. But if you have one that's really shot beautifully with a weenie score, it doesn't work. I mean, in horror movies, the score and the sound is so important. It's like 90% of the movie, I think.
I also think the lighting is actually important too, how you do certain shots, like using like natural lighting to regular lighting to add the colors to make it more realistic too.
Well, and colors is another important thing. In post-production, I have a great colorist. He's part of my family too, Faust Pierre Federici. He's an artist, and we talk it through. The Ossan, the shot of the Ossan looking down at them when he's doing his magic.
Yeah,
that storm that was behind him did not exist. That was just a white sky when we shot it. And between visual effects and the colorization, they created that. I mean, so artistic. And also when we shot the boys looking down in the snow, the colorist created that moment when they look up, and he made a lavender cast over everything to make it look like the spell was happening. So it's things like that you may not notice when you're watching the movie, but the artisans in the behind the scenes are very carefully crafting. It's so much fun making these things, working with each one of these artists, in their world. That's the best part of directing. Is, some people think that a director goes there and tells everybody what to do. No. It's totally collaborative. And if you've got people who are incredibly skilled, you learn from them. It's such a joy.
I think so too. I mean, that's why I love horror. I mean, horror is always dear to my heart, but I also like my action and sci-fi, but mostly horror number one.
Yeah. I was really lucky in my career that for some reason when I started, they kept putting me in sci-fi shows like The Bionic Woman, The Incredible Hulk, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Alien Nation, Space Above and Beyond. all of these sci-fi shows, one after another, and I became sort of an expert with blue screen, green screen, and because of doing it back to back. And I loved it. But the truth is, horror was really my favorite thing. So once I started making my own films, it was like, okay, here we go. The very first one I made was called Used Body Parts. And it was a 12-minute short. Actually, it's on my YouTube channel if anybody wants to watch it. Tim DeZarn, who played the gas station guy in Cabin in the Woods, the creepy guy who tells the kids, don't go there. He's my gas station attendant of my short film. And it's a hideous short film where two girls go in and get into a world of trouble. And my challenge in that one was to dismember a girl's leg, to literally have her hanging up on a fence and to, on screen, chop off a leg. And so I got Matthew Mungle, who was like an Oscar-nominated makeup effects man, who was a great friend, to work on it with me, and also the visual effects people, because once we dismembered it, blood's got to come out. And they said, nobody's ever seen how much blood comes out from a dismembered leg, how fast, because nobody's ever seen it in real life. It doesn't exist on film to reference to. So they were playing with like a gushing out, dripping out, coming from different veins. And it was so much fun creating this. That's the fun of horror movies. You do things that you don't see in real life. Hopefully.
I think so too. And tell me about your other horror short, Amy's in the Freezer.
Yes, that's my favorite project of all. And that's on my YouTube channel too, what they're called, at Wanderlust Films LLC. That's our YouTube channel. Amy's in the Freezer came from the feature-length version script of Used Body Parts. It was about I had a serial killer abducting a young woman, taking her to a cabin in the woods, and during the night, you discover that she's actually worse than he is. And so it's a twist, tables are turned. So I took that concept, and it was a challenge. Somebody said, you write too big. Write two people in a room. So I said, okay. And I expanded a little bit, but basically it was Bridget Graham, who's in the Ossan, and Tim DeZarn. Originally. Then we cast Michael Villar. Anyway, they wind up, after a bank robbery, he abducts her, takes her to a cabin, and you discover that instead of being an innocent victim, she's actually a serial killer herself, who now turns the tables on the bank robber. So that was the crux of the story. And it was so funny and so well done, and so many twists and turns that it won many, many, many awards, not just in thriller or horror, but also in comedy. We were in so many different festivals because it ran the gamut of all those different types of films. And so I have just finished writing the feature-length version of it, and Bridget and I, we've written it together, and we're right now in the process of developing it and pitching it, and we actually got a bite, we're hoping.
That's pretty good. So who's more into horror in the bigger horror fan between you and Bridget?
Equal. Yeah, she grew up on horror movies. Bridget's this pretty blonde-haired, blue-eyed, really pretty girl. And so you kind of like a cheerleader type girl. And she has such a dark side, and it's funny, so darkly funny, that it's a joy. She says things you absolutely wouldn't expect. When we write things together, I say I write the meat and potatoes, and she puts on the dark sparkle. It's great.
Oh, that's what I was asking. I mean, you can't judge a book by its cover. I can tell she had a twisted mind like you, so.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
I like I said, I think that's wild. So, when you're not like writing or filmmaking and loving horror, do you have like a passion you like? Do you have like a little like a geeky, nerdy passion that you love?
Unfortunately, I'm obsessed with making movies. What happened was I worked in the movie industry for many decades, as a first assistant director, associate producer, but always in production. And the truth was I was making other people's like playing in other people's playgrounds. I wanted my own playground. So about 8 years ago, Bridget and I created Wanderlust Films so that I could make my own films finally. And I somehow managed to start getting financing, crowdfunding, and I made an indie feature called Black Widows. That was not great. It was my first foray out there, and I didn't have enough money to really do it right. But still, it was pretty funny. And then after that, I segued into short films because I had so much more control, and I could make them exactly the way I wanted, and the production value is so much higher. Making a feature on your own is incredibly difficult because of how expensive it is. The first one cost me $100,000. I don't have that kind of money to throw around on every movie. So I found my little niche where I could make all of my, it's almost like an episode, 8 episodes on my YouTube channel, because they're all about 10 to 12 minutes long, and they're all like little Twilight Zones. So I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and I have to do it really fast because I waited too long to start making my own projects. You only have so many years on this planet, and I want to utilize the remaining time I have doing what I want to do. So I do it nonstop.
Since you do all of your short films on your YouTube channel, have you thought about getting all your shorts and making it to an anthology type of film like what most horror writers do?
I did think about that. Used Body Parts is actually in the Etheria anthology for the year that it was in. Do you know Etheria Film Festival?
I've never heard of it. Do tell me. I'm always interested in checking out new festivals.
Yeah, at Nightmares, they had one of the co-runners of the festival, Stacy Pippi, come and make an award for the Etheria Award for the best horror female filmmakers in Nightmares. And there were several of us who have been in Etheria. They're in Los Angeles. I think they have 2 of them. I think they have one like in somewhere near Ohio as well. And it's for women who make action and horror and sci-fi films. And they're wonderful. And they really support women throughout the year. Like Used Body Parts kept showing all over the place for an entire year, even after I had stopped being part of the festival circuit. They were doing it for me. And then they made the anthology, and I actually made money off it. It was, wow, thank you. So it's cool to have your shorts in an anthology. But at this point, I kind of like having them on my YouTube channel. We're getting close to monetization on it because we've
Good for you.
A little chunk of subscribers and a lot of hours of viewing. So probably within a couple months, if we get more people subscribing and viewing, we'll actually make a little bit of money off it.
Yeah, I hope it happens for you. Let's talk about, female filmmakers. You see more and more of them getting into horror and action, and a lot of them are actually, pretty damn good about it, especially horror. There's been a huge number of, indie filmmakers that get into horror. They're female writers and directors, and they have that, originality and the twistedness to make a good horror film, especially ones where they get like a all female crew, which makes it even awesome.
Well, when I first started doing my horror stuff about 10 years ago, that didn't exist. There was a handful of us, and then it exploded. And in truth, like I said, my daughter Bridget has a very dark, twisted mind. Yeah. She's always been into horror. All of her friends I watched growing up, all the girls love horror films, and kind of the creepier and scarier, the better. Women are very drawn to horror movies.
They are.
And and they're good at it. That we have an evil streak. And so all of a sudden, women started making horror shorts and horror films, and it literally has exploded to where, gosh, there's probably as many women doing it now as men, which is great.
I like it because women have more of a twisted mind than a man, but there's some guys that have some warped minds too. That's way out there too. But I think it's great how there's more, women in the filmmaking and writing. I totally support that, and I think that's phenomenal. And that's the same thing with action movies. There's a lot of women that can really write a great action movie and make a action hero look like $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed, and that's the whole point of the theory is showcasing women who do that. So yeah, I'm really happy to see it. When I started in Hollywood 30 or 40 years ago, there were two women directors, and I used whenever I'd be near them, I'd stare at them because they were like these weird, unbelievable things in Hollywood, and that was what I was aspiring to. And then slowly but surely, more and more women started creeping in, but never a lot. But within the last decade, it's literally an explosion. However, I will say it's primarily in television. There might even be more women directors in television than men right now. All the series, look at who's directing them. There's so many women. However, in features, it's still not the case. I get the monthly newsletter from the Directors Guild and it shows around 12 to 15 pictures and synopses of the directors that month who have films coming out. And invariably, say there's 15 of them who are highlighted, 2, maybe 3 are female. So when it comes to feature films and the big budgets, Hollywood's still giving those jobs to men. And it's changing slowly, but very, very slowly. It's still a boys' club when it comes to big budget movies. So, but like Wonder Woman and Barbie, there's breakouts that show the possibility that you can trust a woman with a multi-million-dollar budget. I know you can trust a woman, but for some reason it seems like the men in charge in Hollywood haven't figured that out completely yet.
Okay, here's the definition for you. Give me one word what means horror to you.
What means horror?
Horror to you. One word what horror means to you.
Horror. Fear. What goes bump in the night? I mean, the one word is fear. And when I was a little girl, I used to watch Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, and I'd sit there glued to it, absolutely frozen. I couldn't even move because I was afraid the boogeyman would get me if I moved. People love being scared like that in a safe way. That's what horror is all about. It's like going on a roller coaster. You're terrified, but you know that you're not going to die.
Hey,
survive it.
That's a good answer. So where can everybody find you on social media to see what you're going to be doing next in your next projects?
Well, I have a website called theossanmovie.com, and that is showing the film festivals that we're getting into. We literally just started our festival run a couple months ago. We've gotten into 4 great festivals, and now we're waiting to hear after the holidays they'll start up, and we'll be all over the country. So if people would like to see, check out theossanmovie.com occasionally, and we keep posting whenever we get in them and where they are. And then the other one is on YouTube. If you have a YouTube account, go to @Wanderlust Films LLC, and you will see Amy's in the Freezer come up, and that's my favorite short film. I hope everybody gets to watch that. And then we have the trailer for the Ossan on there, but we can't put it up yet until we're done with the festival circuit.
That's pretty cool. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with me. It was a blast.
Oh, truly. I really had a good time. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. And everybody, thank you for listening to Horror Pop After Midnight.